everyone, Andrew with Bad Club Ministries. I'm here with Randy today. We're going to be going over an interview with an awesome dad and going through some questions for you today. So we're just going to jump right into this. Randy, if you don't mind, go ahead and introduce yourself and a little bit about your occupation and what you do.
I'm Reverend Randy Seale, and I'm a pastor within the United Methodist Church. I'm what we call a licensed local pastor. I'm not fully ordained, but I am licensed to serve in the church through the Methodist denomination. Been doing that now I got licensed in 2020. I was serving in a more of a lay supply capacity about 3 years before that. So
Nice.
For about 5 years or so.
Nice.
I've been in the pulpit and serving and whatnot. I had a 25-year career in radio before that. It started when I was a senior in high school. And I kind of took some time off here and there, but have been kind of in and out of the radio business all of that time and do that. Got 5 kids, a grandchild, beautiful wife, loving wife, and I'm blessed to serve, and I'm blessed to have this opportunity to come and talk. I giggled a little bit when you said awesome dad, and I know we'll get to this probably a little bit later on. I don't really view myself as an awesome dad, so thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and I think on that note, like a lot of dads, especially in today's world, today's time, not only as a man is it hard to seem to just be a man and express yourselves as men, but then when we get in the role of dad, how much more of a burden that is, and just the world out there. When I say the world, I'm also talking about like from a Christian viewpoint, from, as a Christian dad, someone who follows Christ and God and is led by the Holy Spirit and faith. When we walk into the world, we were born in this world, but we're not of this world like that. We're separate. So it seems to be even more difficult. Like targets kind of on our back even more in that perspective. So in that situation, what I'm getting to on that is that, being an awesome dad, just when, on my messages, my sermons, I like to make mention that when I'm looking, when someone's watching the videos, I tell them, like, you're an awesome dad right now, and you need to hear that. It's important to hear that. Just the fact that you seek out God's word and God's wisdom and guidance, that right there is you just trying to better yourself, not only for your own soul and your future, but also because you are the representative in your home as a father to your children, that guiding stone for them. And so yeah, definitely, you're an awesome dad. What you're doing in your life, how you're serving God and doing the best you can do as a servant to God, that naturally reflects through you, and His light reflects through you.
I think sometimes it's difficult for us to take those plaudits and those affirmations and apply them to ourselves. But You're right, we do need to hear those things, because as dads, a lot of times it's a thankless job. It really is. And sometimes being a husband sometimes is a thankless job. Of course, there's a few more perks to that than being a dad sometimes, it seems like, too. But I appreciate the affirmation and the encouragement as well. Thank you.
My pleasure. What was it like having the first child? It was scary, exciting. How did you deal with all of the emotions involved, and kind of, did you have a strong relationship with God at that point? Was kind of involved during that time?
As far as God is concerned, I wasn't in church, wasn't doing a whole lot of Bible reading, anything like that. So I think God was there. I believe God was there. Matter of fact, I know God was there. But I didn't really acknowledge the presence of God in my life at that time, in that season of my life. But really, when my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, told me that she was pregnant, I was kind of sitting on the floor in the fraternity house. She was living in the dorm. I was living in the fraternity house, and I was sitting on the floor kind of in front of a table like this, studying with my books and things out. And I closed them up, and just first thing I said, I sat there for a minute and said, I gotta get a job. That's the first thing that came through my head, because you're working for minimum wage at that point, and you're trying to make rent and beer money, living in a frat house because rent's cheap, and certain beer's cheap too. And you go to class and you hang out with a girlfriend, you study a little bit, you party.
Right.
And that was your life at that time and whatnot. So, thinking that I'm bringing another life into the world, scary as hell. You know, it really was.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, 8 months into the pregnancy, we find out that, you know, I already have a daughter that I didn't know about at the time. Her name's Cabriana. She was born in January of 2000, and mine and my wife's first child, Coda, was born in September of 2000. And so there's 8 months apart from them, and people kind of look at me funny when I say that. You know, and then you have to it's kind of a conversation starter, if you will, and talk about that. And you know, we did the whole paternity thing and testing and whatnot with Cabriana, and she is mine, 100%. And you know, did the best we could. You know, they lived in Dallas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we lived in South Arkansas, which was a lot closer than now. Cabriana still lives in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and so it's about 6-8 hours away now. It was only about 4 or 5 hours away then. So it was a struggle to try to get back and forth and do visits and really be a part of her life. But thank God for phones, and you get to call and talk and as much as you can, and she was still a part of our life, and she would visit in the summertime and whatnot. And so we made it work. But that initial thought of, oh my God, I'm going to be a dad, I was scared. I really was. And she and I never had the, a lot of people say, well, why didn't you go ahead and get married at that point? I wasn't ready to get married. I wasn't ready to bring life in. I wasn't ready to commit to that. I wasn't ready to commit to somebody else at that point either. I eventually did make that woman my wife. She was pregnant with our son. He was born in April of 2003. We got married in December 2002. And we started dating in December 1999. So, we started a family pretty quickly, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was scary. And now we have 5, and Cabriana will be 23 at the end of January. Drew, our youngest, will be 16, or she just turned 16 back in November. So,
nice, yeah.
And at one point, if you do the math, when Drew turned 13, Cabriana was 19. So 5 teenagers.
5 teenagers.
Yeah, and that's scary to think about too. Anybody that said that the terrible twos are the worst part hadn't had teenagers yet, right? And especially teenage girls. Never have I ever wanted to be, or do I ever want to be, a 15, 16-year-old girl. Oh man, the drama. 4 girls and 1 boy, and now my granddaughter.
Yeah.
Another girl in the house. Both the dogs are girls.
Oh my gosh.
We had a bearded dragon who was a girl as well.
So
Me and my son are surrounded by all this estrogen.
Yeah.
But no,
he said, "Come on, son, we're going fishing."
Right.
For a week.
We would take our time. He became my little buddy.
Mm-hmm.
We would go do guy things, and
That's cool.
go to parks and hang out with one another. Dad, can we take a break from the girls for a little while?
Oh yeah.
But I will say this: my son has a great appreciation for the women in his life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And having the 2 older girls ahead of him and the 2 younger girls below him, his mom, and he has a really good appreciation for women in his life. So I think it's neat that he has a little girl now that he's situated with raising as well. So.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and like he was around these girls his whole life, and now he has a little girl too. So he knows from that perspective too. So that'll obviously that'll definitely help with raising a girl.
I hope so.
I hope so.
He's 19, and him and his fiance. I mean, she's 18, and so they're young.
Yeah.
And just trying to figure it out. We started out with nothing. Like I said, rent's $200 a month at the frat house, and you're trying to make it to the next party at that point. So you're thinking about, hey, you got nothing, absolutely nothing. Now I got to get a big boy job and not make minimum wage anymore. And well, I haven't graduated college yet, and how can I do this? And all those things just kind of overwhelm you in the beginning.
What would be some advice that you could give some listeners that might be in the same situation as just newborn and new baby coming into life and in the picture?
My wife looked at me not too long ago with our granddaughter, and she said, you really weren't this patient with our kids. What's going on, here? Maybe I learned.
Yeah.
I mean, when they're babies communicate in two different ways. They're either happy and quiet, or they're upset and crying.
Yeah.
And why is that? And I'm trying to help teach my son and his fiance that, that's how she communicates what's going on. She's dirty. She's hungry. She's tired. Typically, she's only getting hurt if she falls down or bumps something or something like that. So that's why they're crying. So does her diaper need to be changed? When's the last time she ate? When's the last time she took a nap? Those kinds of things. So I mean, it's really simple. I would say if one of those three things aren't answered, there, well, she just ate. We just changed her diaper. She just woke up from a nap. Maybe she's just having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say be patient. Be as patient as you can. Because the more you get frustrated, the more the baby's going to get frustrated. Yeah. And they feed off of our energy. When we get older and become adults, we don't necessarily look at the energy we're expressing, and our attitude and how we're feeling in the moment. How does that affect the people around us? Yeah. Babies eat that up. They feel that, and so they can feel you getting more frustrated. And I would just say be patient. Be as patient as you can. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
The baby's not going to die. Change their butt. Make sure they're fed. Try to lay them down. The worst thing, kids, I don't know why kids won't just go to sleep. I don't know why. But sometimes bedtime is one of those frustrating times. And sometimes I lock her arm under me and I grab her legs and put them here and I just hold her and she's trying to get out. Yeah, she's frustrated and fussy and I sing to her. And that's what I was doing that night. And she was wiggling like that. And Summer's just looking at me and she's and trying to push away. And we sing "You Are My Sunshine."
Yeah.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. And so I was doing that and I was rubbing her head and just being patient with her, and she finally calmed down and she just went off to sleep.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So she I don't know if she's if they try to get us upset so they can get up and do something else, or what goes through a baby's mind? I wish I knew.
Yeah, right.
My son and I were talking not too long ago about, does she think in a way where she understands, like the voice inside her head, like when we think, I think in my voice.
Yep.
What does she hear? Does she hear my voice? Does she hear her own voice? Because she can't formulate words right now and things like that. I was like, I've never really thought about that.
Yeah, that's a rabbit hole right there.
So
trying to figure that out.
The advice that I would give is to just take a breath.
Yeah. Yes.
Center yourself a little bit. Lord, I know I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have given me the child if you knew I couldn't handle this.
Amen.
And take a breath and just be patient.
Amen to that, being patient. So any new parents, patience. And all I would add is, I think it's a swaddle, right? Swaddle them. A good swaddle. And if they're crying and you get stressed out, there's nothing wrong with putting them in the crib. They're not going to die from crying.
Not at all.
Walk away and get centered. Get your energy back and get focused, and then revisit.
Because if they're laying there in the crib and they're crying, they're alive.
Yep.
And they're breathing, they're taking in air and all that, and they're strengthening their lungs.
Yep. There you go.
Even though that crying, it may. I remember as a young father, and I can see it in my son too. It just, the crying just irks you. Why are you crying? Why? Just shut up for now.
Yeah. All normal stuff.
It
Don't
is.
feel bad.
Absolutely normal.
You're not a bad parent if you get frustrated.
Absolutely normal.
So, all right. So, patience, and it's okay to feel the emotions, scared and things like that. But you're gonna be okay. It's gonna be all right. What do you feel like makes a dad awesome?
Oh man, I'm trying to remember what I told you on the phone the other day.
You didn't write no notes down?
No, I didn't. Just being present. I think it is when you can. The men are tasked even in this society, in this age, and I think the shift is there.
Mm-hmm.
That men aren't necessarily seen so much as providers, but we still are.
Right.
Protectors, providers, and fixers of things.
Mm-hmm.
But which takes us away from being in the presence of the child a lot, or in the presence of our significant other, spouse.
Yeah.
At times, because we are doing those things. But making the most of the presence that you have when you're in that environment with your child, I think would make an awesome dad awesome. My dad worked a lot. He worked a 5 county territory for IBM. I remember when I was growing up, he would fix copy machines, fax machines, printers, and things like that. And that's what he did. He was a technician for IBM, and he would be gone a lot. But the time that we did have, and I remember spending a lot of time by myself, I feel like, at times, but the times that he was there, he was present. He was my little league coach. He was the one that we had my stepmom had a farm that was gifted to her from her father, and we had cattle that we raised. So I would always go out to the farm with my dad and work the cows and fix the fence and do those kinds of things with him in the time off. They're menial tasks. We got to build a fence row here. We need to take them post hole diggers and go dig it. You never know work digging post holes.
Oh yeah, it does,
and all that. But it's like the country song says. They think we're just fishing. You think you're just building fence. In that, as a kid, you do. Or you think you're just working the cows, or you're just fishing, or you're just doing that task at the time. But it's now that I'm older, I realize that it was how Dad spent that quality time with me that he didn't get when he was at work.
Right.
and I try a lot harder now than I used to, because even in radio, when I worked in radio and doing morning radio, I'm up at 4 a.m. getting ready for the day, at work by 5, on the air by 6, doing sports in small market radio. I may have to drive over to Blytheville that night and do a basketball game.
Oh wow.
And come back and it's 1 in the morning.
Woo.
So I hadn't laid eyes on any of my kids or my wife awake in over a 24-hour period. And my kids don't necessarily know this, but there's many nights that, 1 in the morning I come in, open the door, and I just look at them. Just standing there and watch them sleep. And my wife would catch me doing it from time to time. Of course, and she knows what I'm doing.
Right.
I don't get that waking time with them. Or I've reached down there and I move the hair out of, the girl's face. And, if Bub had his leg out from under the cover, hanging off the bed, because he inevitably lays sideways off the bed and just weird, you put him back in and, tuck him in and do what you can. Just, but make the most out of that time that you have with them. There's a lot to say, lot to be said about being present, even though they may not know that you're present.
Right.
Yeah, it's important for them to see that you're there. It's important for them, but it's also important for you as a father, as a dad, to know that you are present.
Amen.
And those times that those quiet times where they're sleeping and all that, and that you're there, and they're good, and they're warm, and they're safe. It's a blessing.
It is.
It's a blessing. Even though you're not getting to interact with them how you might want to, but getting to pull him back right on the bed, getting resituated, or moving that hair out of their face and stuff. Those are warm,
heartwarming moments.
Warm moments, for me.
Yes.
And makes the difference between just being a father and a daddy.
Yep.
So,
I agree with that.
Just be present.
I've done that before in affirmations while they sleep, like whisper, positive things in their ear and just pray over them. Yeah, I get that. Being present, that's strong. I really like that. That's awesome. So what makes a dad awesome? Present. Be present. That's very good. What are 3 important pillars for a dad to have in his life?
I don't think I shared this with you the other day. I always told my kids, I said, and I wish I'd have said this to you. I said, don't ever lie to me, because one day I may have to lie for you.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? Well, that goes back to that protector part. Let me know what's going on in your life. So when mom comes along and asks something, or if somebody is something, you ever get yourself caught up in something, I know what's going on with you.
Yeah.
And I can help you out. That may be kind of an antiquated way to look at it, but don't lie to me, because one day I may have to lie for you. Is that the right thing to do? We're supposed to be honest in all things, right? But you want to protect your kids,
Right.
No matter what. I don't think it's wrong to want to do that.
Right.
At all. I'm going to be honest with you. Summer and I have always said, if the kids ask us a question, legitimate, I mean, you're playing around sometimes, and you don't necessarily get deep into conversation or answer the questions quite like you might in a different setting. But if the kids are legitimately asking, if they're asking, especially when they get older in being teenagers and start asking about things like sex, about alcohol, and social aspects of the world that they don't necessarily see when they're younger, and things of that nature. If they're going to ask a question, be honest with them.
Right.
If they're legitimately, even a 5-year-old, if a 5-year-old comes and asks you a legitimate question, I think you should answer it in a way that the 5-year-old can understand.
Yeah, in their language, where they
Right.
understand it. Yep. Yep.
So that's a way to be honest with them as well. And the third one is keep your promises.
Keep your promises. That's perfect.
It a lot of times as a dad, I've had to say, well, I promise I'll be there for this. Something comes up at work.
Mm-hmm.
Something, in pastoral role, somebody passes away. Or somebody has an accident, somebody's in the hospital, and they ask for you to be there, and those things. We have to be present in our vocation. We also have to be present in our kids' lives.
Yeah.
So part of that being present is if you're going to promise your kids something, don't break it.
Amen.
Don't break that promise. Because if they're not going to trust you,
Yep.
especially as a dad, as father, as a male person in their life, if they can't trust you, how do you expect them to trust other men? How do you expect them to act around other men when they get out of your protection? I had a fraternity brother that was, oh my God, he was horrible. Horrible guy. When it came to women, he was horrible.
Oh man.
And found out I was going to have a girl. And you may have heard this story in different settings for different people, and it's one that, but it actually happened. I said, how do I keep my daughter away from people like you?
Mm-hmm.
He said, don't ever break a promise, and always tell them you love them. Because if you're breaking your promise, there's somebody out there who's going to uphold their promise, and there's somebody else that's going to tell them they love them just to get what they can out of them.
Man.
Yeah,
that's powerful stuff. Yeah.
So that's I know those probably tie into biblical principles in some way. Love others as yourself and things of that nature. But that's if we're going to put it into a real applicable kind of sense.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I would say for those 3 things.
That's awesome. So what are 3 important pillars for a dad to have in his life? Don't ever lie to me, because I may have to lie for you. 2, if asking a legitimate question, answer honest at their level, their age level. And 3, keep your keep your promises, and tell them you love them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell them you love them and mean it as much as you can. As much as, I don't think you can tell your kids or your spouse or significant other that you love them enough.
Right.
You know, well, you say it all the time. You need to hear it.
Yeah. Well, there may be a day you don't get to hear it from others.